Hey guys, it's Mad Static, and this was a nice surprise. In case you don't know these guys or this game, let me give you a quick 100% completely accurate rundown. So the Protectors of the Universe are a superhero space team from DC Comics, which usually includes 5 core goofballs in Swamp Thing, She-Hulk, The Coon, Green Kratos, and last but also least, Peter Parker. In 2021, they were given a new video game adaptation that was published by Square Enix and developed by Eidos Montreal. A linear, story-based, third-person action title that follows the team pretty early in their formation, before they even actually like each other. From there, they struggle to make money, struggle to pay off fines, struggle to not piss people off, struggle to stay alive after pissing set people off, struggle to find the power of friendship, and struggle to defeat a super space cult that's about to consume the entire galaxy. With that done, I'd like to make something else as clear as possible from the get-go. This game is good. Like, really pretty good, and I'm not gonna lie, I really didn't believe it could do it. I've only expressed this a few times on the channel, but I kinda like superheroes a little bit. So I'm usually on this type of stuff immediately, but straight up, I just didn't think I'd like this game, and to my credit, I think my doubts were pretty reasonable. I'm not the only one that skipped out on this game. It's pretty well known that this was a big financial failure, and I think the first problem was just timing and fatigue. Marvel was and still is pumping out mediocre superhero movies and shows one after another. It's tiring, and at this point, I don't think anyone can be blamed for not picking up another Marvel thingy. Except for that new Spider-Verse movie. If you don't go watch that, you're a dummy. The second, and probably much more damning problem, was Marvel's Avengers, the Square Enix Marvel game released a year before this. Yeah, that game came out and sucked, and because of that, no one cared to give Square Enix a second chance with Marvel games. But you know, my interest has been refueled with Volume 3 hype, and this Guardians game pretty much confirmed that the Avengers game would have been pretty solid if it wasn't ruined by really bad business decisions that tried to fuse this story-based third-person action game with the progression system and mission structure of a live service loot shooter. Like, come on man, that shit doesn't even sound right on paper. Please, gaming industry, no one ever try that again. Please! Now, unfortunately, the last doubt I had about this game turned out to be true to an extent. I like to keep pretty up to date with what's going on in the industry, so yeah, shortly after this game came out, I heard many people vouch for the game's quality. But you see, I have this stigma with Square Enix games, all the ones I've played to this point. It's a varied list, and at the end of the day, I liked playing all of them, and would probably do it again. But there's always this outstanding problem of really fucking awful dialogue. It's not even funny. They will just have the most cheesy, flaccid, embarrassing conversations and speeches that I refuse to believe were written by professionals. It's just not possible. Now, how much of the game it affects varies from case to case, but it's always there in some capacity. And tragically, their Guardians of the Galaxy game also falls victim to this, but not as much, thankfully. I still can't deny, though, mostly in the starting hours, the dialogue sounds straight out of Forspoken or Life is Strange. The Guardians never stop talking. Ever, and admittedly that is in character for them, but so much of it is just them reacting to everything or making unnecessary comments. They have whole conversations that are about nothing and do nothing. Even when they are saying something with substance, it's in the most unconvincing way possible. It is clear as day what the writer's purpose is when characters start talking, instead of characters sounding like they're actually having conversations, like how people are supposed to. There is no subtlety. It really hurts characters like Peter and Rocket specifically, who are supposed to have smart-ass, wisecracking, charming personalities, but when the writing isn't smart, wise, or charming, all that's left is ass and crack. Funny enough, all those negatives actually work really well for Drax. He's a naturally awkward guy who is blunt to a fault and is pretty bad at talking to people, so there really wasn't a problem making the dialogue work for him. Same goes for Groot. You know, he's always getting his 3 lines right. Good on him. And Gamora, I actually don't have a problem with her. Her voice actress specifically has some really strong moments. That being said, all the voice actors do a good job, but there are some awkward line reads here and there. That does come with awkward lines in general, though. The main reason this game works, despite the messy dialogue in the beginning, is because it did capture the heart and essence of these characters. But before I can start praising the story, one more thing. This game, obviously, takes place in space, so characters have their own little space lingo and slang. Like, instead of saying fuck, they'll say flark. Or instead of saying hell, they'll say flark. Or instead of saying literally any other curse word, flark. If this is the first and last time I ever play this game, it's because I never want to hear that damn word again. They say it so fucking much. A big problem a lot of licensed games have when trying to tell an original story is standing on its own feet, without the IP holding it up or filling in gaps. I have not seen a lot of superhero games pull this off, but Guardians manages to be one of the few. Like I said, the soul of these characters are pretty spot on, and even though this isn't an origin story, they go through meaningful character development and arcs. You're introduced to what they're like, and from there they go from a bunch of established idiots reluctantly working together to idiots that consider each other family, and you get to see how and why. The story itself really doesn't waste your time either. You've got elements being set up from the very start that come back around by the end. It's very thorough when setting up this world, and seeing how it all unravels is very satisfying. I don't want to spoil anything, but it's not really about the team shooting some big bad super space god with lasers, though they do eventually do that, and I'm not gonna lie, it gets pretty crazy, but more about facing reality and coming to terms with it. You've probably seen the idea a few times in other stories, and it's done well here too. That horrible dialogue I was going on about mostly disappears by the first fourth of the story, which shows that despite my problems with it, this is probably the best put together superhero story we've gotten in gaming so far. It's abundantly clear how passionate this team was about these characters, as well as their history and source material. There are tons of callbacks to the comics, Easter eggs scattered throughout the environments, and even opportunities to brush yourself up on comic details and lore. The people behind this game really know their stuff. Speaking of those visuals though, the game is constantly vibrant and colorful, while usually keeping this kind of industrial space station look. Like I said, Square Enix does visuals well, and this is no exception. During firefights especially, the screen will become an explosive barrage of lasers and bombs and bright lights, and please don't play this game if you're sensitive to that. It'd be so much more impressive if the game could do all of this stably, but it doesn't. Actually, this game's most constant problem is a constant lack of polish. Mostly on that visual front, the game can feel very sloppy, with a number of recurring hiccups. Beside the frames dropping, animations in general are a mess. There are special finishing moves during combat that almost never actually play out properly. Music won't be synced with scenes appropriately, resulting in no music during dramatic moments and dramatic music in moments with nothing happening. Characters will be talking about something interesting and then get cut off for in-game action quotes. Clarity in environments isn't consistent, making it hard to tell when you can explore and when you're going to run into an invisible wall. The game's not programmed for some reason to let you go back during these wall crawl or crouching sections, so you'll have to get through that area and then go back through it again. There is no run button, which got pretty grating. There was this really funny moment where Drax would not stop following me around and just kind of stood there. Drax is such a weird guy, I couldn't tell whether this was supposed to happen or not, but at some point it becomes pretty obvious.
Richard Rider established an outpost on the planet's surface.
An undermanned, undergunned, and horribly outnumbered outpost that didn't stand a snowball's chance in hell when the Chitauri launched a sneak attack.
He's also got jiggle physics. That's a positive, by the way.
But the only reason I'm droning on about the rest of these little problems is because the game is set up as a third-person cinematic PlayStation exclusive wannabe, where they take away control from the player in order to show off something. It pushes presentation to the forefront, which makes all these little nitpicks affect the experience that much more. I hate how Square Enix games keep trying to do this as of late. Like, if you can't do it as good as Naughty Dog, then just don't bother, cause it's less time wasted on everyone's part. I don't need to be heavily immersed in the game with the space raccoon and the talking tree, just let me jump around like an idiot during serious story moments. No one cares, just be proud of being a silly little action game, cause it's another one of the things this game does best. The combat of this game is a very fun but simple cluster of shooting and action. It's not very complicated and it never really demands much from the player, but it gets away with it all by just being satisfying to pull off. Your job as Star-Lord is to zoom around the arena in your jet boots while laying down what's mostly covering fire with your blasters. He isn't very powerful by himself, but he plays as a very fun and active supporting character to his teammates, who are doing the real damage. You can command them to do powerful special moves that, when combined, pretty much kill everybody with ease. When going up against beefier enemies, it's all about breaking down whatever defense they have with some of Peter's special elemental shots, timing your team's moves correctly, and surviving while they're on cooldown. Again, it doesn't really do too much beyond that setup, it never branches out to make for interesting or testing scenarios, but what's there all makes for some pretty crazy spectacles. You know, in retrospect, the combat and this game in general does a really good job of putting you in the shoes of Star-Lord himself, and really connects you with his character. This man is a lovable, showboating dumbass who slides around dead bodies like it's disco. This is one of the only leaders of a team that is less capable than every one of his members. He is not stronger than anybody here, and he isn't the smartest, but what he lacks in almost everything, he makes up for in spirit. He is the team's soul. Without him, these people would still be the same, but would only really focus on surviving. Because with the shit they've been through, that's their first instinct. But they do have hearts, and Peter is able to tap into them, pull them together, and make them a team. by talking so much that he eventually says something actually inspiring, and he is great for that. And that's basically this game in a nutshell. Guardians of the Galaxy is like Star-Lord. It's not the most well put together, it screws up constantly, but even more consistently pulls through and is badass when doing it. Thank you for watching.